This is the case of 2-year-old Isabelle Welsh, who was murdered by her mother and the mother's boyfriend. This is Harrison Simpson, who's 22, and Alexandra Walker, who's 26. They had been jailed at Teesside Crown Court for life, with minimum terms of 28 years and 22 years, respectively, for the murder of her 2-year-old daughter, Isabelle Welsh. Now, I have to say, you know what's coming here. This is going to be incredibly distressing. And these are the kind of details that I have to admit sometimes I cannot bear to read, and I avoid reading, because the idea of such a small child suffering is almost it's unspeakable, it's unsayable, it's unreadable. But we can't turn a blind eye to this stuff. We have to do something. We have to do as much as we can to stop this from happening again. So I want you to listen to the facts and tell me what you think. Why does this happen? And what can we do to stop people like this behaving in this way towards their own children? 03456060973. First of all, we're going to speak to Phoebe Abruzese, who is LBC's North East reporter at Teesside Crown Court. Phoebe, as I've said, some very distressing details in this case. Just bring us up to date with what has happened today.
Yes, Aasmah, it's incredibly upsetting. The mother, Alexandra Walker, has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 22 years today for the murder of her daughter, toddler 2-year-old Isabelle Rose Welsh, last September. She's also been found guilty of child cruelty, and her new boyfriend, Harrison Simpson, who she'd been with for only a matter of months, has also been given life with a minimum term of 28 years. A jury convicted him of Isabelle's murder, her sexual assault and also child cruelty. Isabelle collapsed after suffering a catastrophic head injury at her home on Teesside last September. DCI Steve Chatterton led the investigation.
This investigation exposed the heartbreaking and sustained abuse of a vulnerable little girl who should have been protected, loved and cared for. Instead, Isabelle suffered repeated and serious injuries over a prolonged period before ultimately losing her life as a result of a fatal, devastating attack. Our thoughts remain with Isabelle foremost. She was a defenceless child whose life was cruelly taken from her, and the circumstances of her death have deeply affected everybody in the investigation.
It's been an incredibly upsetting trial. Throughout the 5 weeks of evidence, the jury and Isabelle's family have heard harrowing accounts of the abuse, physical and sexual, that she suffered in the weeks leading up to her death. Despite the evidence and today's sentences, neither Harrison Simpson nor Alexandra Walker showed any visible emotion as they were jailed for life. The pair had only begun their relationship a few months before Isabelle died, and prosecutors told the court that in that short time they carried out what was described as a campaign of cruelty against the 2-year-old. When she died, Isabelle had 21 broken bones and almost 90 bruises. She'd been at the North Tees Hospital only weeks before she died with a broken leg. After the hearing, Isabelle's father told reporters he did not believe the minimum prison terms were long enough for justice.
Phoebe, thank you very much for that. That is Phoebe Abruzese. She's LBC's North East reporter at Teesside Crown Court. Right, let's speak briefly to Liam Kotrie, who's a criminal defence lawyer, director of Mary Monson Solicitors on Fleet Street. Afternoon to you, Liam.
Afternoon.
What can you tell us about the sentencing here? The mother and the boyfriend are facing life in prison. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because they're quite young.
Well, they certainly are life sentences. That means once they serve the minimum term, they will only be released once they are determined by the parole board to no longer be a risk to the public. Now, we've heard about these minimum terms that they are serving. They will definitely serve those years in prison, probably more. It's very unlikely. It's unusual that at the first attempt that they would be released when they apply for release on parole. They'll remain on licence for the rest of their lives. They'll be closely monitored throughout that period. Immediate recall to prison would be a strong possibility any time that they stepped out of line. But of course, this is an incredibly tragic case, and any proceedings like that will no doubt attract media attention, strong feelings from the public, strong feelings from the parole board themselves. They're not robots. And the horrendous suffering that this child went through would come into account when those hearings were held, and the thoughts of the family, including the father, who feels that justice wasn't served today.
Indeed. So I'm just doing some quick maths. The boyfriend who was convicted, he's 22. He'll serve a minimum term of 28 years. So he'll be 50 potentially when he comes out of jail. And the mother, 26, she was given 22 years minimum term. So that will be, she'll be 48. Is this usual?
They're young ages of the two defendants in this case, because I've seen the pictures of them. They look like children themselves. It's terrifying. That will have been taken into account when sentencing came across as a mitigating factor. It may seem strange to hear that there are mitigating factors in a case like this, but everything has to be taken into context. So the sentence is somewhat of a usual one, with the media attention and, of course, just the sensitive nature of the tragic events that took place over time. This was prolonged suffering. Would the Attorney General will no doubt be paying close attention to this sentencing, but whether or not the matter would be referred to the Attorney General for another look at whether it was unduly lenient would be another matter. I suspect these sentences will hold as they are.
Liam, thank you very much for that. It's Liam Kotrie. He's a criminal defence lawyer, director of Mary Monson Solicitors in Holborn.